And let's see, Ron and Dave, getting you up, getting you moving this morning. A whole lot to get to, including money. Yeah, we're talking money. In fact, Drew Blazsik is in studio with us right now. And Dave, you're connected as well, so you guys can wave at each other. But
we can't wait to hear what Drew has to say about our money today.
Talking about, there's two scary words out there. Central banking would be the two, but then we have the Constitution.
Yeah. Hey, good morning. How you guys doing?
Wonderful.
Great. How are you, sir?
Doing pretty good. So there's because Constitution Day, we are having a presentation tomorrow. The Northwest Ohio Conservative Coalition. They asked me to speak there tomorrow. So
nice.
What it is about the Constitution, and everyone speaking. Lee Strang will be there, and it's going to be about the why. Why did they write the Constitution? How they did it. So they asked me to, I'm going to talk about central banks in the Constitution, and I'm going to answer the question is why did they put that in the Constitution about central banks? And the answer is they didn't. They didn't write anything in there. So I'm going to have to, it's going to be an interesting talk about that, and it's going to start with what is the Bank of England we're going to start with. And that's the centerpiece, I think, of all central banks of where the Central Bank of the United States came. A lot of people get that misconception. They think the Federal Reserve was the first central bank in the United States, but was the first Bank of America, and it was debated heavily by Hamilton and Thomas Jefferson, which is very interesting.
Really?
And Jefferson, his whole point was the reason why it wasn't in the Constitution is because they debated it when they ratified, when they put the Constitution together, and the states would never have signed it. And the proof behind the pudding is that the reason is we fought a war against England, and England's central bank, you can argue, and this is my premise I'm going to do in the presentation, that when the Bank of England was created, which is fascinating, that their imperialistic idea of going around the world and going to war was because the central bank that they created was a private bank. And people have to understand the differences. If you created a public central bank, it's owned by the government and it's an agency of the government. But if it's a private central bank, it's controlled by the shareholders of the bankers, and they have an incentive to borrow to the King of England to go to war. And that's the main goal of it.
Yeah.
So it's pretty fascinating if you look at it that way. And Benjamin Franklin made the quote that the reason why the Revolutionary War happened is because America started its own currency. And remember, if you have a central bank, it's based on debt. And just to go back to the Bank of England, when they created the central bank, the Bank of England, they never mentioned the Bank of England in the title or the first couple sentences. It was all about taxes. The reason is because when the bankers lend to the king or the government, they must be insured by the tax revenue that's coming in. Taxes and central banking are essential together, which is, and then if you go back to Benjamin Franklin, he said the reason why it happened was because of taxes and currency. That's the reason why the Revolutionary War happened. So back to Thomas Jefferson's point is the reason why there's no mention of a central bank is because they would never have wanted it in the first place, and they debated it.
Interesting.
And how the story goes, they did pass the central bank. The first Bank of America had a 20-year charter, and it expired it passed by one vote, and then it expired. And then you had the War of 1812, and then they created the second Bank of America. And so it's always tied, central banking and war, which is interesting.
That's very interesting, and that sounds like it's going to be a fascinating talk too.
Yeah.
And where are you going to do that?
I believe it's at NOCA at the school.
Yeah.
So
are others invited, or you have to be a member?
You guys can go online and look for it. I'd love to have you two there.
Absolutely.
And awesome.
Please say hello to Professor Strang for us.
I will.
He's he was scheduled to be a guest on my Faith with Reason show, and then that's when he got the job at Ohio State.
Oh, really?
So we're keeping a day open for him. Let him know.
Oh, that'd be great.
Drew Blazsik, always enlightening.
Thank you, Drew.
Hey, thank you.
Appreciate that.
Hey, Drew, next week, would you mind? I want to give a little prep here. Would you mind? Let's talk about the economic plans of the two presidential candidates, if you don't mind. What some of the differences might be, and how they fit into all of this, and maybe even specifically how Catholic or kind of different than Catholic teaching they might be.
Okay.
Let's do it. That'd be fun.
Morning Offering, Ron and Dave. Thank you, Drew Blazsik. We'll be right back.